Today I'd like to continue a presentation on Desmond Tutu. We talked about Desmond in terms of his early life, his call to be priest, starting out as a teacher. He then, in March of 1972, he returned to Britain to work for the Theological Educational Fund, which was quite a prestigious position. So he was being recognized by fellow priests, by those in the hierarchy, as really an exceptional student, a great teacher, and a wonderful leader. And even his professors in the seminary noticed his ability to be a good leader and to get others involved. So right from the beginning of his life, he had that type of energy, that dynamic to attract other people to him, and also a very shrewd understanding of his studies, a good student, loved to learn, and did very well. He then became the Bishop of Lesotho in 1976, and in 1977 he spoke at the funeral of Black consciousness activist Stephen Biko. So even at that time, he was noted as someone who would speak out for the Black population, a wonderful representative, somebody who could really generate enthusiasm and a good leader in that sense of bringing people together, and someone who could speak to the authorities, the white power establishment, could speak well to them and present a good case to them for achieving more understanding of what the needs of the Black population were in South Africa. He wrote about Black theology. 1973, he went to Union Theological Seminary and gave an address about this field of Black theology. And basically, what he said is Black theology seeks to make sense of the life experience of the Black man, which is largely, basically, Black suffering at the hands of rampant white racism. So what he tried to bring out was you have to look at what is the experience that the Black person is going through, and what does that say to him, to his family, to the community, to the country. You have to look at that experience, and that experience really is an experience of racism and exploitation, and you have to address that. And so he raised a very interesting theological question, which was, is it possible to be Black and continue to be Christian? Because when you see those who are Christian and how they treat Black people, you say, well, if this is Christianity, do I really want to be part of that? Because it seems like Christianity tends to lead towards exploitation, taking advantage of others, treating others poorly, because they are of a different color than you are. He says, those who ravage our humanity dehumanize themselves, though. And what he's trying to bring out is, if they are trying to take advantage of us, what it's really reflecting on is themselves. And they're really doing a lot of damage to who they are as persons. And this has to be part of Black theology. We tend to think of, well, they're the exploiters, they're doing well, but they're really not doing well. They're really doing harm because they're destroying the humanity of others, and that does harm to their own humanity. And he said the liberation of the Black man is the other side of the liberation of the white man. So when the Black man is given all their rights, when they're able to function in society, when they're treated as equals, that's going to have a profound effect on freedom for whites as well. Because when you are oppressing others, you're really doing damage to who you are and to your own sense of freedom and what your faith really is all about. He publicly endorsed the international economic boycott of South Africa over apartheid. And naturally, this got him into a lot of trouble with the authorities. They didn't want to see this boycott being promoted in any way. And to have such an outstanding leader do this, it was something that certainly was very upsetting to them at the time. He also opposed the government's Terrorism Act of 1967, which led really to the arrest, imprisonment, and sometimes torture of black people. He became chairman of the South African Council of Churches from 1978 to 1985, a very important position at a very crucial time in the history of South Africa. And he said, this organization is neither a black or a white organization. It is a Christian organization. And as a Christian organization, it must have a definite bias towards those who are oppressed. Because part of the message, the essential message of the gospel, is to reach out to the poor and the oppressed. That's what Jesus proclaimed as his mission, to free those who are captives, to help those who are in prison, to help those who are being exploited. That is the essential mission of the gospel. His recognition internationally continued. He received an honorary doctorate from Harvard in 1979. 1981, a very interesting incident. He was at a funeral that he was celebrating, and the crowd after the funeral started to attack another man whom they thought was, infiltrating the group for the government, kind of like a spy that was planted in the funeral. And they started to attack him, and Desmond went to him, got everyone off of him and said, this is not what we are about. We cannot resort to this. Again, that nonviolent approach that he modeled so well for the people. In 1985, he became the first black Anglican bishop of Johannesburg, and in 1986, the first black Archbishop of Cape Town. His style of leadership was very interesting. It was very much based on consensus building. He was trying to bring all different factions together. One of the interesting things that he would do when he was bishop and archbishop in these positions is he would visit not only the parishioners who approved of him, but those who objected to his political views, his views on apartheid. They objected to some of his approaches. He would visit them equally. So he was trying to always reach out to all and bring all. And of course, there was opposition. His positions were very controversial at the time. We look back and say, well, this seems like simple and obvious, but it was so entrenched at the time, this hatred and the separation between black and white in South Africa, and the rules were so rigid in terms of just where you could go and how you had to have a pass to travel and many, many restrictions. And so he spoke out against these and actually got opposition for it. He then, when the country came together and there was this democracy and the African National Congress took over, Nelson Mandela appointed him as the head of the South Africa's Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And he would listen to the testimony about torture and killings on all sides and bring all people together to listen to one another. And his theory was it's important that we listen and we hear what others have to say. At some sessions, Tutu would weep openly. The commission report was issued in 1998. Most of the blame was laid on the forces of apartheid, but the African National Congress was also found guilty of human rights violations. So he had kind of an even-handed approach. He put both of those in the report. And so the African National Congress sued to block the release of the document. And Tutu rebuked them. He said, I didn't struggle in order to remove one set of those who thought they were tin gods, to replace them with others who are tempted to think they are. So we wanted kind of an equal balance for all. He's survived by his wife Leah. They were married for 66 years. They were married in the Roman Catholic Church because she was a Catholic, and they had 4 children. He was asked how he wanted to be remembered, and he said simply, he loved, he laughed, he cried, he was forgiven, he forgave, he was greatly privileged. A great man who left a lot for us to ponder, reflect on, and imitate.